Welcome back to episode 16 of the Roll the Tape podcast. I'm Jackson White alongside
Aiden McNally
and Jalen McKissick.
So today we're going to be talking about what we think each NBA team will finish in the standings, our dream playoff matchups, will the Warriors or Lakers miss the playoffs, and which young team has the brightest future, and then we'll finish with award predictions.
And we have yet another fun segment for you guys. I don't know if you remember last week, but we did NBA start, bench, and cut, and then we actually posted on our socials a start, bench, cut video. So we have some more start, bench, cut for you guys this week.
Speaking of the socials, make sure to follow us at Roll the Tape Sports. We're going to try and post daily videos, Instagram, TikTok, and then on the Twitter, you can see all our notifications about when we're going to post.
So with that, let's roll the tape and get right into it. What we think each NBA team will finish in the standings. We're only going to be doing really the fringe playoff teams and the playoff teams. We're not going to be talking about the Wizards, Hornets, Pistons of the world. Starting with the Eastern Conference, we will start at the top and finish at the bottom. We'll start with the Boston Celtics, who are now 46-12, first best in the Eastern Conference. And I would have to say I don't think the Celtics are going to move. I think they sit right where they're at, and I think they get to 60 wins to finish this season.
Yeah, I mean, they're 7.5 games ahead of second place. They've already clinched a playoff spot, which, 58 games into the year is absolutely insane.
Hard.
So, yeah, Celtics got to be one for the Eastern Conference, no doubt.
Yeah, Celtics will definitely stay at 1. Cavs, Bucks, I don't see them getting anywhere close. I think the Celtics, like Jackson said, get to 60 wins.
All right, moving along now to the current number 2 seed in the Cleveland Cavaliers. They are 38-19. Best for second in the Eastern Conference. And, well, this is kind of an interesting one. I think the Cavs fall to 3. I don't think they stay at 2. I think the team that's at 3 that we'll talk about in a minute hops over them. But it's definitely going to be interesting. Cleveland has a really good team, but I'm going to say they go back to 3 for me.
I mean, I think the Cavaliers this year have never been truly healthy. I mean, they've been playing very well recently. Obviously, at the time of this recording last night, Max Strus hit that half-court bomb for the win against a very hot Mavericks team. But I don't know if they have the experience yet. I know they have a veteran-ish in Donovan Mitchell. They have pieces like Jarrett Allen to come off, to go off. Max Strus has been in the playoffs with the Heat, obviously. But I think I feel like a team like the Bucks and the Knicks have a little bit more firepower than them. Obviously, the Knicks are 4th right now, but that's just because OG and Julius Randle have been out for weeks. So I'm going to say the Cavs finish in the 3. So that's where I have the Cavs.
I also think the Cavs finish at 3. I think the Bucks, now that the period, like the first starting period with Doc Rivers is kind of over now, I think they've finally gotten, some continuity with him. They've won 3 straight. I don't see them really losing a lot of games to finish the stretch. And because Doc Rivers teams are always good in the regular season, not really the playoffs, but I think they finish strong and jump over the Cavs at 2.
Yeah, I'm going to have to lead into that. I would have to agree. I think Milwaukee's going to be my 2 in the Eastern Conference as it looks. Cleveland will be 3. So, yeah, Milwaukee, I have them bumping up to 2. I think they'll get to around 57 wins on the year.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Bucks. I think we all should agree here. Celtics, Bucks, Cavs for 1 through 3. Just because the Bucks have so much on their team. Obviously, you have all-stars on your team, superstars on your team. Damian Lillard has been to the playoffs many times. He's experienced with that. Obviously, Giannis has literally won a championship before, so they know what it's like late in the season, which is an aspect that a lot of other teams lack.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So now that we have our top 3, and those are kind of the upper-esque of categories, now I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a challenge. You have to name your 4 through 8, starting with your 4, and then we're going to go through till 8, and then the next person will go. So starting at 4, I'm going to say the Knicks keep the 4 spot. As it looks right now, currently they're 35-24, which is best for 4th in the Eastern Conference. I say the Knicks stay at 4. Then I would say 5. I think, as it looks right now, I think Indiana ends up at 5. I think the Pacers, who are currently 33-26, end up at 5. I would say Miami ends up at 6. I still think they probably get to 50 wins, but right on that edge of 50. And then I would say Orlando goes to 7. They're 33-26 right now. And then I would say Philadelphia falls to 8 without Embiid. I still think they get around 46 wins, but I think they get the 8 seed and will be in the play-in tournament.
For my 4 through 8, I agree. I do think the Knicks keep that 4 spot. I mean, I think at one point in the year they were even the 3 spot, and then Julius Randle got hurt, OG Anunoby got hurt. Once those guys come back, I think it's all gas, no breaks for them. I think they keep that 4 spot. Do I think they're in that 1 through 3 seed tier yet? Probably not, but I guess we'll just have to see whenever those 2 guys come back. For 5, I think it's the Sixers. I think the Sixers, once Embiid comes back, I think we're going to, be reminded of how good they are with Embiid. If Embiid's, doesn't get hurt, I think we talk about him already locking up the MVP award, averaging 36 points per game, which is ridiculous. So I'll say the Sixers at the 5. The 6, I'm going to say the Heat. I think a team with Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, we've seen it before. It doesn't matter who's on their team. They're going to win games. They're going to win games definitely in the late stretch of the season and definitely leading into the playoffs. So I have the Heat at 6. For the 7, I'll have the Pacers. I think that the Pacers are still kind of adjusting with the addition of Pascal Siakam. I don't think we've seen their peak performances with Pascal yet. I think they're all still getting kind of used to each other and, how this system's going to work with Pascal Siakam. So better things to come for the Pacers, but I'll still have them at 7. And then at 8, I'm going to have the Magic. They're a very good team. It's just that they're young and inexperienced. I feel like none of their starters have really had that clutch late season, playoff experience, especially with a young guy in Paolo Banchero, who's 21 years old. To have him be kind of the leader of your team doesn't really look too great. But you never know. He might pop off. But those are my 4 through 8 in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, for my 4, I'm going to agree with both of y'all. The Knicks are going to be the 4. They're just on a roll right now, especially when they get, like you said, OG and Julius Randle back, fully healthy. This Knicks team is scary. At the 5, I'm going to say the Heat stay at 5. I just think that the Heat have too much experience on their team. In late season, Jimmy Butler is a real thing. Jimmy Butler in the late season, towards the playoffs, he turns up another notch. I don't know how he does it every year. It's like he coasts through the first half of the season, and then he just
Jimmy's
and he just
guy.
pops off at the end. And then at the 6, I'm gonna have the Pacers. I think the only problem I have with the Pacers, coming from a Pacers fan, is that our inability to beat bad teams will be our downfall. I saw that the Knicks have like a plus, like they're like 28 and like 6 when it comes to under 500 teams, but they're negative in terms of wins when it comes to playing above 500 teams. I mean, you do that, obviously the Knicks are the 4 seed right now. They haven't beat good teams, but they beat every single bad team. And the Pacers, that's like the complete opposite. They can beat the good teams, but you play an under 500 team and you lose, I mean, you have to get those free wins. So I think those stay at 6. For 7, I'm going to have the 76ers. I think without Joel Embiid, they'll fall off. But if Embiid comes back before like middle of March, like it's suspected to, they could definitely go on a little run, maybe even get back to the 4. And then at 8, the Magic, the inexperience will definitely get to them at some point. They've had a great season. Paolo's played like a NBA caliber player at times. I mean, that shot that he hit against Detroit, me and Aiden were watching it. We couldn't believe it. The and one from the mid range with a guy all over you.
Crazy.
Tough. But I think that the inexperience will get them at some point, and I don't know. We'll see what happens with them.
Definitely will. Now moving along to our dream playoff matchups. Each of us are going to pick a matchup in the East and West to have our dream playoff matchups. I'm going to start, and I think the Pacers versus the Bucks in the Eastern Conference is the most dream playoff matchup, I think, in the East. Both these teams don't like each other. And while Indiana has a slight hand on the Bucks this season, winning that series 4-1 if you're counting the in-season tournament game. So I would say the Pacers and the Bucks in the East are mine. And you guys pick your Eastern Conference dream matchup.
My Eastern Conference dream matchup would probably be this is hard. I'm going to go Heat Celtics. I think the Heat and the Celtics in the recent history of the playoffs have had so many good series. I think last year in the Eastern Conference Finals, That was a great series a couple years ago in the second round, I believe it was a great series. But yeah, Heat and Celtics, it's just one of those matchups where it doesn't matter, how each team played in the regular season. It's always going to be a good matchup. Jimmy's always going to match up well against Jason Tatum. So that would be my dream matchup for the Eastern Conference, is to see a third series in between the Heat and the Celtics recently.
My dream matchup for the East is definitely going to be Sixers, Knicks. Those teams hate each other.
That is true.
The amount of history that is between those teams is crazy. But Joel Embiid always plays good in Madison Square Garden. He likes that big stage. And then Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson is a All-NBA, possibly even second-team player right now. So that would be a battle between two superstars. I don't know where I would. I think that's a 7-game series. I don't know who pulls it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So moving along now to the Western Conference. Now we're going to talk about what do we think these teams in the West are going to finish in the standings. So looking at the top teams, I think we're probably all going to be pretty even here. I think the T-Wolves and the Thunder battle it out for the first seed here on out. I think those teams are in lock to be the 1 and 2. That's just how it is. Obviously, the Nuggets are only 2 games behind, but I think the Thunder and the T-Wolves in the regular season are a step above the teams below them. So I'm not going to say 1 or 2, but I think it will be a battle for 1 and 2 between the T-Wolves and the Thunder.
I'm going to say the Timberwolves get the 1. Not clearly, but, it'll be close, but I think they're my team that's kind of ahead of every other team right now. I think their ability on defense is just levels ahead of any other team in the Western playoff, standings, race, whatever you want to call it. So they're going to be my 1 for the Western Conference moving forward.
I'm going to agree with the Timberwolves. I think the Timberwolves defensively are just elite. The amount of 3-and-D players that they have on that team is really crazy. Jaden McDaniels is one of the best. Anthony Edwards can play a little defense here and there. Plus, he can score the ball with the best of them. And I think the Thunder are right there, but I do think that they aren't as good defensively. Offensively, they're just as well as the Timberwolves, if not better. But defense wins championships at the end of the day.
Yeah, so moving along now to 3 seed, and currently the Nuggets, who are 39-19, sit in that spot. I'm going to leave them there. I think the Nuggets finish with the 3 seed in the West.
For me, I think it's got to be the Clippers. The amount of experience this Clippers team has is unreal. I think they did kind of get, I don't want to say humbled by the Thunder, but they did get outperformed by the Thunder. In that last week, that game that happened last week. But I think they jump the Nuggets. I think they finish in the 3 spot. Having a team with Kawhi, Paul George, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, probably one of the most underrated centers in the league in Zubac. You have guys like Norman Powell coming off the bench, a defensive specialist like Terrence Mann, who's been in many playoff series before. I think the Clippers do jump the Nuggets for the 3 seed, but as I said, in that matchup against the Thunder last week, they showed that they can be beat. This isn't like an unbeatable team, but I will have the Clippers in the 3 spot.
I'm going to keep the Nuggets at the 3. I think that they know what it takes to win a championship, and that is getting a home court advantage and keeping that home court advantage. And to do that, you must stay at least the 3 seed. Obviously, you can fall to 4, but I think they'd rather be a 3 seed versus someone like hopefully the Kings or Mavericks, not the Suns.
Yeah, I don't think you want to see the Suns. But we're also going to do the 4th place here in the Western Conference, since there is a drop-off after that. So I do think the Clippers, I think they stay in 4 here on out. Like you said, Aiden, I could see them jumping the Nuggets, but I'm going to say the Nuggets finish at 3, Clippers stay at 4.
I'll swap that. I'll put Clippers at 3, Nuggets at 4.
I think the Pelicans jump to 4. The Pelicans are playing really good basketball right now.
So you think the Clippers fall to 5?
I think the Clippers fall to 5.
Okay.
I think the Pelicans are playing really good basketball at the moment. They're fully healthy, and Brandon Ingram is playing great basketball. CJ's playing great basketball. Zion, Stephen A. Smith might have lit a fire under him. I don't know. Stephen A. Smith has been talking a lot of
Zion's still doing his thing.
A lot of trash to Zion Williamson. So hopefully that lights a fire under him, and he can perform at a higher level this season or for the rest of the season.
Yep. So now moving along, we'll have 5 through 8. And then we'll talk about the teams that are below that as well, since that's the topic after this. But my 5 through 8 it's honestly how it looks right now is pretty fair what it is. I do think the Suns overtake the Pelicans at 5. So I think the 5 will be the Phoenix Suns, who are currently 34-24. I think the Suns fall to, the Pelicans fall to 6. who are 35 and 24 right now. I think the Kings and Mavericks kind of have a battle for the 7th and 8th seeds in the West.
I think for my 4 through 8, this is tough. I mean, the 4 through 8 in the Western Conference is almost unpredictable. There are so many teams with so many stars in this conference. I will say the Suns, in my opinion, I think they do jump the Pelicans. Just, too many stars on that team, too many superstars. I think they have a superstar in Kevin Durant and then a high
Suns are
star.
scary.
Yeah, a high-level star in Devin Booker, and then a lower-tier star in Bradley Beal. Other than that, they're a little weak. But ever since that Royce O'Neal trade, I think they've definitely been over 500. They've definitely improved their bench with that trade. For the 6, I'll say New Orleans. I don't know. There's just something about this team that just doesn't do it for me, especially you lose a guy like Dyson Daniels coming off the bench, who obviously isn't, the greatest player ever, but that does ruin depth, and depth is very important, especially if you want to make those late season runs, especially in the playoffs. So I think the Pelicans fall to 6. I think the Mavericks jump the Kings. The Mavericks are 7-3, almost beat the Cavaliers last night, the second seed Cavaliers last night. But if it wasn't for Max Strus with the 59-foot buzzer beater, they come away with that one. But the Mavericks, ever since trading for Daniel Gafford and P.J. Washington, they've looked very good. They're 7-3 out of their last 10. I think you can make a case for them even being in the top 6. So for that being said, I will have the Suns at 5, the Pelicans at 6, the Mavs at 7, and the Sacramento Kings in the 8th spot.
So I had the Clippers at 5. I'm going to keep the Clippers at 5. I think that's pretty solid. The Suns, I'm going to keep the Suns at 6. They've had some depth issues, which is the reason why they've really lost a lot of games this season. Because on paper, this should be a top 3 seed, top 4 seed at least. But the depth on the Suns team has really hurt them when, KD or D-Book or Bradley Beal goes off the floor. The production just drops off. At 7, I'm going to have the Mavericks, because the Mavericks have been playing great basketball ever since the trade deadline. They have lost 2 straight, but that's just the way it goes sometimes when you have new people on your team, need time to adjust. I think the additions of Daniel Gafford and P.J. Washington have been huge for them, especially offensively.
And the Max Strus buzzer beater. That's also why they're
that's just very unfortunate. They caught the Pacers team on the wrong day, and they got blown out that day. I mean, it was a game until the fourth quarter, and then the Pacers caught fire that game. But if they don't lose those 2 games, they're they're the 6th seed right now, so maybe even the 5. So it is what it is. But at 8, I do think that the Warriors or Lakers could jump to the 8. But I'm going to keep the Kings in there because I think the Warriors and Lakers are a little bit too inconsistent as of right now. But they can always win the play-in tournament and get in the playoffs.
Yeah, I would definitely say those are the 2 of the scariest teams. But now as we look as the top 8, what are your guys' dream kind of playoff scenarios here? And I'm going to say mine first. I think the Thunder and the Mavericks, for me, would be a really dream kind of scenario game because Luka versus Shea, I mean, that's showtime almost every time.
Yeah.
And obviously the Thunder have a lot of young guys, and the Mavericks obviously have Kyrie and some other pieces as well. So I think that matchup, and obviously there's some history behind it too. Obviously the Thunder and the Mavs kind of battled it out in the early 2010s a few times, and also they've played before that when they were the Sonics as well. So I think that one would be really fun. I'm sure you guys have some other good ones as well.
So for me, this is a matchup that probably won't happen in the playoffs, just seeding-wise. But I will say the Timberwolves and the Thunder.
2 really young teams.
2 very young teams. I believe
Western Conference Finals.
I think it was 2-2 in the regular season. So, and all games I think were 1-score games. I'm pretty sure, if not single-digit games. So very close there. Again, like I said, it might not happen. Probably won't, just because of the seeding. But if they collide in the playoffs, maybe in an or a Western Conference Finals,
that'd be crazy.
Maybe even a conference semifinal, probably won't happen. But even if they collide at all in the playoffs, this series would go to 7 undoubtedly.
I think this matchup that I have right here would be one of the greatest playoff matchups of all time.
Okay.
On paper, team versus team, they stack up very well against each other.
Okay.
And that's Clippers Suns.
Yeah.
Clippers Suns
Yeah.
would be a playoff series for the ages. You have Kawhi versus KD, Paul George
I mean, for
versus
star
Bradley
power,
Beal,
I mean that's what you
James
got.
Harden versus Bradley Beal. That's not really a competition. But in terms of stars versus stars, that's the matchup you want to see right there. That's prime time television every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And finally, I'm going to have just one more, and
Okay.
it's a little bit of a sleeper. It kind of leads into our next topic a little bit. I think a crazy playoff matchup would be the Battle of L.A. I think the Los Angeles Clippers versus the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Clippers coming out on top would be insane.
They've never versed in the playoffs, have they? Since LeBron's
No.
been there.
No.
Who,
they
the
never-
Lakers and Clippers?
Clippers.
Yeah.
I know it's been like a rivalry ever since LeBron got there, and the Clippers have yet to like even get close to where the Lakers have been in the playoffs at least.
I mean, in the playoffs, yeah, the Clippers have always had the Lakers' number.
Yeah.
The Lakers can't beat the Clippers, but I think that in a playoff series, LeBron versus Kawhi, obviously the battle, obviously Paul George versus who would be the equal on the Lakers?
I don't know, Austin Reeves.
I guess Austin Reeves and Zubac versus AD. I mean, who wouldn't want that? But that would be also something, especially if the Clippers came out on top as they're kind of in the rebrand, kind of trying to get away from the Lakers.
Yeah.
And that final stepping stone could be beating them in the playoffs. It would be kind of storytell. But
Yeah.
now moving along to, well, the Los Angeles Lakers. Talking about them, the Lakers and the Warriors are kind of the Lakers and the Warriors are kind of in an interesting situation. Both teams are slotted at the 9 and 10 seed in the Western Conference. The Warriors are 30-27, and the Lakers are 31-28. Both teams 3 games back from being, 3 games over 500. So both these teams are not currently in the playoffs and 3 games back from the playoffs. Is there any way possible they get into the top 8, or do you think they just come down to play-in time and, big-time players make big-time plays, and, both those teams have a big-time player?
I think the only team 1 through 8 in the Western Conference that gets jumped is the Kings. I think the Kings are a little bit too inconsistent this year. I mean, obviously they're a team that's been bad, like at least in our lifetime. They've never, made some fairy tale run or even made the playoffs majority of our lives. But I think the Warriors, the state that the Warriors and Lakers are in, they're 2 very old teams with a lot of veterans. They're going to do whatever it takes to get a spot in the top 8. Now, even if they do get a spot in the top 8, 7 and 8, whatever it is, they'll still have to play in the play-in tournament. I mean, it's not like I don't think they find themselves avoiding the play-in tournament, either of them. But in a state that the Lakers and Warriors in, I think there's no way they don't go down without a fight, which I believe the Lakers and the Warriors, either one of them will at least get the 8th spot, and I think one of them would get a 9 or 10th spot to play in the play-in. Now, which team do I think is going to get the 8 or 7 or 8? I have no clue. If I were to take a guess, it'd probably be the Lakers, just because of how much star power they have. The Warriors right now, it's kind of just Steph and Curry, and then their second option is whoever just decides to
come
pop
bucket.
off. Yeah.
Man.
The Lakers, they have LeBron, AD. I mean, this is a team that we thought was going to be a top 3 seed in the West before the season started. So I'm going to say the Lakers get in the top 8, probably the 8th spot, and I see the Warriors dipping to 10, and then the Kings finishing at 9 in the Western Conference.
I think that the Lakers and Warriors are going to be in the play-in tournament. Obviously, they're not getting 8 or 7. They're just too far behind at this point, unless the Mavericks or Kings just start falling off rapidly. And I don't think that the Jazz jump either the Lakers or Warriors as they're like 4 or 5 games behind.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you're a Lakers or Warriors fan, the only team you want to see in that play-in tournament is the Kings. You don't want to see anybody else.
Yeah.
Maybe the Pelicans, if the Pelicans fall off, because the Lakers did beat the Pelicans in the play-in. But if you're a Warriors team, you don't want to see the Suns fall off, and you don't want to see the Mavericks.
No.
Neither team wants to see the Mavericks. Neither.
Honestly, if I'm looking at it right now, I think the matchup is in the hands of Warriors and the Lakers versus the Kings.
Yeah.
I don't see any other team they can beat in one game.
No.
I do think there's a few teams that the Lakers could possibly beat in a playoff series if LeBron comes to play.
Yeah.
And when I mean LeBron comes to play, we're watching 35 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists LeBron, not 24, 6, and 5 LeBron. So
I think you want to see the
Yeah.
Pelicans and Kings. And other than that,
Yeah,
those are like the only two teams
Yeah.
that I think that they can beat in a one game game. But the Mavericks, Luka's gonna do Luka things, and then the Suns, if the Suns somehow fall to 7 or 8, you're cooked. You're not beating them.
yeah, but if there's any team I don't want to see in the playoffs, it's the Lakers. If I'm any
That's true.
team,
That's
because
true.
there's one bad man in the playoffs, and we've said this many times before. And his name's LeBron James. I know he hasn't done much of late. Obviously, last year going to a Western Conference Finals, but I still get scared to death by that man in the playoffs.
Yeah, but Luka in the playoffs is a different breed too.
What's he done ever since that one?
Hey,
Nothing.
he averages at least 30. He almost averages a triple double.
Triple double, and they lose.
Hey,
they
but
have not
that's
won
when he had
anything.
a bad. He has a good team now.
I bet he
He
does.
hasn't had-
First round exit. Mark it here.
You think he's gonna be a first round exit?
Yeah.
Against who?
I think the T-Wolves sweep them out of the building.
Well, if they
I think the Thunder sweep them out of the building. I think the Nuggets sweep them out of the building.
The Thunder sweep
Not
them.
sweep them,
I
but
think the
I think
Thunder
they get them
take-
out.
I think the
I
Timberwolves
think
take
T-Wolves
them
and
in
Thunder.
5. I think the Thunder take them.
I
in
think Clippers
6.
sweep them.
Oh, I agree.
And he has the Clippers. Like
I think the Clippers sweep any team that's under them in the standings right now, besides the Lakers.
in the Suns.
Yeah,
I think
and
the Suns snag a game.
and the Suns.
But yeah. Well, moving along now to our one of our final things here. Which young team has the brightest future? But there's a catch. It has to be a team that is currently not in the playoffs and not in the play-in. So it has to be a team who is 11 and down. Aiden, you start.
Well, as an OKC fan,
Okay.
obviously got to give a shout out to the Thunder. I mean, they're the clear cut second youngest team in the NBA, second seed in the Western Conference. You're not beating that. But if we're supposed to take a team that is 11 through 15 in each conference, it's tough, but it's really tough. But I'm going to take the Trailblazers.
Wait, you said in the Western Conference or just in the NBA in general?
In the NBA
In the
in
NBA
general.
in general, I mean, I'm taking the Trailblazers. They have a guy in Scoot Henderson. He's obviously still adjusting to the NBA setting. I think we're also forgetting he's only 19 years old. Shaden Sharp is a guy who, showed flashes last year, but kind of been injured this year, but he's also still only 20. You have Anthony Simons, who's a MIP favorite, I believe, right now. Not a favorite, but definitely a top 3 candidate in the Most Improved Player award. You have, Jeremy Grant. And I know he's kind of aging. He's 28, 29, but he's a good veteran piece to have moving forward, especially in a weaker front court alongside DeAndre Ayton. So I think they have the pieces to do great things. Obviously, their bench isn't amazing, but their young core that they have with Scoot, Simons, Shaden Sharp, is a very scary backcourt trio. If those guys all work out, all turn out, they can be scary, and they're definitely a team that, would be very, very hard to beat if all those guys pan out, especially once they reach their primes.
Yeah, my team that's in the bottom 15, like 11 through 15, that has the brightest future, to me, I'm going to pick the San Antonio Spurs. And obviously, you look at it, the Spurs right now, 11 and 48, well, that's not good. But, well, they have the alien. They have Victor Wembanyama, and, well, having him alone can put you on this list. He's averaging 20, 10, and 3. Yep, 3 blocks a game as a rookie. They also have a few solid players. I mean, Devin Vassell's a guy who can give you almost 19, 20 every night. Keldon Johnson was on Team USA just a few years ago. Still a solid player. And Jeremy Sohan, obviously, him at point guard is not the move, but him at power forward, him at small forward, I would say power forward, is a pretty good place for him. He's still a solid player. And obviously, they're bad, so they're going to have a top pick. Obviously, this draft class, to me, isn't good. This
Probably one of the worst ever.
Yeah, it probably is. But there's still solid players that are going to be up for grabs who can help this team, and I think they're just a few pieces away and possibly a new coach away from being a true contender in the Western Conference, because with Victor Wembanyama, once he gets used to this, they get a really good, I could see them, let's say they make a move for like a Trae Young.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
I mean, while we're on the topic of Victor Wembanyama, I think it's crazy that this kid is still, he's 20 years old. He just turned 20 a couple months ago. The fact that this dude in 4 years from now still isn't going to be in his prime, still yet to reach his prime, is just a ridiculous thought. I mean, he's putting up, 25 and 12 right now, averaging, just the thought of him still being a good 6-7 years away from his prime is
It's
hard
definitely
to fathom.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of players in the league now that come into the league at 19, 18 that are super good and their prime is nowhere near. I mean, same with you can even look at Halliburton. I mean, technically speaking, whenever a prime should theoretically start, he's 3 years away. So
Anthony Edwards.
Anthony Edwards, another guy, even
Banchero.
same with him. I mean, there's a lot of guys who are stars in the league now that obviously hadn't even reached that yet. But finally, Jalen.
So for my team that I want to look out for, it's the Houston Rockets. I'm going to keep it Western Conference real quick. The Houston Rockets have one of the brightest.
Wait, no one picked the Wizards? Oh, sorry.
Who am I going to pick? Jordan Poole?
No one picked the Grizzlies.
Oh my gosh, Jordan Poole. He's gonna be in his prime next year.
No one took the Hornets. What?
The Hornets were a team I was thinking about.
Yeah.
But I think the Rockets have a lot more depth on their team than the Hornets do, because you look at their team. Obviously, you have the star right now, Sengun.
My God.
Almost said the wrong name. You have Sengun, and then you have Jalen Green, who's also he hasn't reached what you thought in
He's
terms
still
of
young.
in terms of efficiency, but in terms of scoring the ball, he can score with the best of them. He can put up a 30-point game for you. He can put up I don't think he's hit 40 yet, but I feel like he will in his career at least have a couple 40-point games. You still have Fred VanVleet, who's on the older side, but he's still not 30 yet. Then you have guys like Dylan Brooks, who's a defensive guy who can really help build the culture there. Jabari Smith Jr. is still young. This is like his second year?
Yeah.
He still has time to grow. Cam Whitmore, already averaging 12 points in his rookie year, coming off the bench too. Sleeper 6-man of the year, by the way. Tari Easton, young guy. Amin Thompson, another rookie. Can't shoot, but he can play make. And he can score in the paint. So I think the Rockets team, especially with the coach Ime Udoka, I mean, 25-33 isn't the worst record in the world, especially looking at how young this team is. I think next year we might be seeing this team as an 8 in the playoffs.
I mean, they were good at the start of the year.
They were good. They were like top 5 for a while.
Yeah, for a little bit, and then they just kind of fell off. But moving along now to our final NBA topic before we play a little game called Start, Bench, and Cut. We're going to be looking at NBA awards. And, well, the NBA awards are kind of interesting, but we're going to pick our picks for MVP and all that, and let's just get right at it. Who do we think wins MVP when it's all said and done halfway through the season? I'll let Jalen start.
My favorite one is Shea. I don't think he's gonna win it because I think Jokic is gonna get it. But in terms of who I want to win, it's Shea. Shea is, I wouldn't say carrying the team because J-Dub and Chet Holmgren have both been putting in work in their own right. But in terms of production, Shea puts up 30 a night easily. Like him not having a 30-point game is more rare than him having a 30-point game. Like, it's honestly crazy. He puts up good numbers. He still plays great defense. He might not get 8 to 10 assists a night, but he still makes plays for his teammates because of the amount of defense that he attracts. You almost have to double team him when he gets to the mid range or to the bucket. Easy kick out to J-Dub, who's one of the best shooters in the league right now, or to Chet, or to a guy like Ludor, who's really upped his efficiency from the three. I just think Shea, all around. You look at the term MVP, most valuable player. You take Shea off this OKC team, they're a bottom 5 team in the West. You take Jokic off of the Nuggets, they're still a top 8 seed, I feel like, because Jamal Murray's still there. Luka, you take him off the Mavs, they might fall off a bit. They might fall off a bit because Kyrie's still there. You take Giannis off the Bucks, I think the Bucks still a playoff team, fringe. You take Jason Tatum off the Celtics, they're still a top 5 seed in the East. So yeah. I think Shea, because of the term MVP, most valuable player, he will win it.
Yeah, if we're talking what the MVP actually means, I think it should probably be Shea. The Thunder being a 10 seed last year to being potentially the first seed in a stacked Western Conference is unheard of. I mean, I can't remember the last time a team went from a 10 seed to a potential 1 seed, especially in a crazy good conference. And, in this modern day of basketball, offense is prioritized. Defensive specialists and defensive players are much harder to come by in this modern day of basketball. And Shea is a guy who's leading the league in steals, leading the league in steals per game, leading the league in deflections. He might even grab you a couple blocks a game. I think he's averaging a little bit less than a block per game right now. So he's doing all that while dropping 31, almost 32 points per game with a handful of an assist, handful of rebounds. If you take Shea off this Thunder team and have J-Dub as your first option, I'm not saying J-Dub's a bad player, but if you have him as your first option, I don't think the Thunder are near even a top 4 home court advantage team. I think they might not even be in the playoffs. I think they're a play-in team if you take Shea off this team. So in my opinion, I think Shea, I'm not going to say he's going to win it, but I think he should win it just because of his ability to do it on both ends of the floor at a high level, taking consistent shots. He's shooting almost 60% from the field as a guard, which is insane. So Shea is probably my pick to win MVP.
Yeah, and I'm just going to kind of caddy off that. I'm going to say Shea's my pick to win MVP too. There's not much else to it. I think without his team, I don't know if that team's in the playoffs. And with him, they're the second seed. So I'd have to agree. Moving along now to NBA Rookie of the Year. And, well, I think this is all going to be consensus here. I think we're all going to pick Victor Wembanyama.
What? I was going to pick Jaime Jaquez.
I bet you were.
Brandon Miller.
So we're all picking Victor? So
yeah.
All right, Victor. Obviously, Chet Holmgren also has a case, but Victor's been doing things unheard of. I mean, 20, 10, and 3 is insane. Obviously, Chet still, believe he's second in blocks in the league with like 2.7 or something like that. Yeah. Still playing well. He's definitely going to be the runner up there. Moving along now to NBA Sixth Man of the Year, where this one is an interesting one because there's a lot of names that could be tossed around, and I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to say my pick for Sixth Man of the Year right now is going to be Norman Powell. And I know it's kind of far off because the betting odds don't even have him as the top 4. But Norman Powell on the Clippers, obviously, if they can move up to the 3 or even possibly the 2, I definitely would say has to be fair because Norman Powell off the bench is averaging 14 a game. He's an elite shooter for them, shooting over 40% from 3. And he comes in whenever those guys like a Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden go all out. He comes in with Russell Westbrook, and they play still really good offense. So my pick for Sixth Man of the Year is going to be Norman Powell.
My Sixth Man of the Year award is going to go to probably the greatest player to ever touch a basketball.
Oh, God.
I already know what it's going to be.
Here we go.
And he goes by the name of Naz
I knew it was going to be
Reid.
Naz Reid.
Hey.
All jokes aside, though, I think I realistically think Naz Reid could win this. I mean, he's probably the best, center coming off the bench, almost the best player coming off the bench in the NBA. He's the sixth man of a team who is first in the West, plays very good defense. He'll hit you threes whenever you need one. I think he's shooting above 40% from 3. If not, then he's near it. I mean, this guy, great compliment to Cat and Rudy Gobert's playing time. How the Timberwolves just value their centers. He's the perfect guy to have coming off the bench if you're the Timberwolves, especially running a 2-center lineup. So I'm gonna give it to Naz Reid.
I'm gonna give it to Malik Monk. Absolute microwave off the bench. He comes in when De'Aaron Fox, Sabonis might still be in there with him, but whenever De'Aaron Fox goes off the bench, they turn to Malik Monk, and he provides every time. 15 points per game, 44% from the field, 36% from 3, 2 rebounds, 5 assists, almost a steal a game. Those are great. Those are almost starter-level numbers. I mean, really, if you're being honest, he is better than Kevin Huerter, but Kevin Huerter just has that three-point ability that keeps him in the starting lineup. But I think Malik Monk closes the games, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he does usually.
He closes the games, but him being the flamethrower that he is off the bench, I just think that there's no way you don't give it to Malik Monk.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I mean, I'd definitely say his name is definitely up there in the top 3 for me. Moving along now, NBA Defensive Player of the Year. I think we're all going to pick the same player here, so Rudy Gobert.
The Frenchman.
Is the consensus.
Well, I was going to pick Miles Turner.
I bet you were.
Yeah.
Rudy Gobert obviously been dominant all season long on the best team in the Western Conference. It's going to be Gobert. Moving along now to Most Improved Player, which could be interesting, but I'm going to go ahead and take the betting favorite. I'm going to say Tyrese Maxey. Obviously, he +5 on his average this year in scoring, was an all-star, almost an all-star starter, and really, since Embiid's out, he's the number one option on his team. Tyrese Maxey has stepped into that James Harden-esque role next to Embiid and done it almost at a better clip than Harden did, at least offensively when it comes to scoring. So I would say Tyrese Maxey, most improved player.
For me, my most improved player is going to be a guy who, who nobody really knew last year. He was kind of under the radar last year. It's going to be Jalen Johnson from Atlanta. I really like what he's been doing. I mean, he was a guy who didn't really get many minutes last year on the Hawks. Comes into this year, and steps into a role that was missed by John Collins, and he's been playing exceptional. He stepped into that role perfectly. Now, the Hawks aren't the best seed in the world. Actually, I don't even think they're in the playoff picture. I think they're the 10th seed, so they're barely going to sneak into a playoff game. But Jalen Johnson himself, he's improved a lot from last year. He's shown that he is that power forward that they're going to, move on with. So I'm going to go Jalen Johnson for the MIP.
For my MIP, I'm going with Kobe White. I have one stat right here that I'm looking at. He averaged 9 points last year. You know what he's averaging now? 19 on better efficiency.
Yeah.
That's insane. Going up 10 points and shooting better from the field.
That is pretty insane.
Usually that doesn't happen. I mean, I know Maxey is probably going to win it, but I think Kobe White should be right there. I really think Kobe White should win it, but Maxey probably will win it because, first of all, the 76ers are a playoff team. And I don't know, Tyrese Maxey just has a little bit more
he's just better
to his game. I mean,
he's just better.
Maxey's averaging like 25 in the league right now, and that's a lot more than Kobe White's 19. But Kobe White, he should definitely get a shout out.
Yeah, for sure. Now moving along now to the final award that we're going to cover, NBA Coach of the Year odds. I'm going to let Aiden start with this one.
For my Coach of the Year, I'm not going to say it has to be this guy. I don't think it's like a blown out of the water pick. But I'm going to go Mark Daigneault from the Oklahoma City Thunder. What he's done with this team, starting this rebuild with Sam Presti 4 years ago, or just about 3 years ago after that, playoff appearance with Chris Paul, starting that rebuild and seeing where he's gotten this team. And this isn't even from this year. This is just from the last overall 3 years. He's built this team from the ground up. From a coaching standpoint, he's helped Sam Presti draft almost every single one of their starters. He's built this team to an amazing state, and he went from the 10th seed last year to the 2nd seed this year. And actually, I mean, they're tied for the 1st seed right now with the Timberwolves, so you could say they're kind of like a 1B to the Timberwolves. So going from a 10 seed to a 1 seed is ridiculous, especially with the pieces they have on the bench. They don't really have much bench depth and much depth in general outside of J-Dub, Shea, and Chet. So for my Coach of the Year, I think it's going to be Mark Daigneault from the Oklahoma City Thunder.
For me, I'm going with the opposite. I'm going with Chris Finch from the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think it's really just depends on whoever finishes at that 1 for the West. If it's OKC, then he'll go to Mark Daigneault. If it's the Timberwolves, I think it goes to Chris Finch. But I think the job that Chris Finch did this year opposed to last year. I mean, last year the Timberwolves was basically at the same team, but finished 8th. Now they're fighting for the 1 seed. I think that job that he did in the offseason, he really made sure that Cat and Rudy Gobert play well together. They must have had a lot of, talks in the offseason about how to, match those two together to make it work offensively as well as defensively. And Anthony Edwards is definitely taking a step. But I think the scheme overall that the Timberwolves have implemented this year has really just made their team do a complete 180. And you can really see that on the floor. So I got Chris Finch winning Coach of the Year this year.
That's valid. And finally, I want to end it with a different name, kind of a sleeper, you could say. I don't necessarily know if he's going to win it all, but definitely has a chance. J.B. Bickerstaff.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Rick Carlisle.
I wanted to. But J.B. Bickerstaff, obviously, with the Cavs, he's done a really good job this year. Cleveland is a team that's now a top 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. I believe they're 2 right now. And so they're obviously they could slide back to 3, but they're going to finish probably a top 3 seed. And they've had a lot of injuries too. I mean, Evan Mobley missed some time, Darius Garland missed some time, and they just kept on playing. In January, I believe they only lost 2 games or 1 game, something like that. So they've been playing really good basketball. Obviously, the names you guys named probably have a better shot at winning it. But I would say my sleeper is J.B. Bickerstaff if Cleveland continues to play at the level they're playing. But moving along now to our final segment of the day, which is the funnest one, the game Start, Bench, and Cut. I want to name 3 players, and you guys have to decide. I'll decide as well. Should they start? Should they be benched? And should they be cut off the roster? Let's get it started with 3 centers. Start, bench, cut. DeAndre Ayton, Clint Capella, and then finally Avak, whatever. Actually, Zubac. Yes, those 3 start, bench, cut.
Ooh, I'm gonna start Clint Capella. I really like Clint Capella's game off the pick and roll with Trae Young, as well as his rim protection. I think he does everything better than, not everything, but one of the main factors of centers. I think he does that better than the rest of these centers. I'm going to bench Zubac. I think Zubac is probably one of the more underrated centers in the league. You know, he's a big physical guy. He'll do anything you want in a center. He doesn't offer anything offensively, really, but but he doesn't really have to, since he has 4, or 3, stars, former superstars on his team. He does what he needs to do defensively. He does the job. So, and consistently. So I'm going to say Zubac at the bench spot, and then I am cutting DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton's he's good. He has the ability to stretch the floor, which is an ability that none of these guys, other guys, have. But he's just too inconsistent for me. There's a lot of close shots that he has that he just can't finish over, the smallest of guards, which I don't really understand. Defensively, he doesn't offer as much as the other 2 guys. So overall, I'm going to start Clint Capella, bench Zubac, and then cut DeAndre Ayton. Yeah.
Me personally, I'm starting Zubac. Zubac is my most underrated center in the league. I think he does literally everything well. I remember, I think it was like a year ago at this point, he had a 20-20 game against the Pacers. 20 rebounds, 20 points on Miles Turner's head.
It's not that hard to have a 20-20 game versus Miles Turner.
Let's
be honest.
But Zubac, I think he's been the most underrated center in the league for like at least 2 years now, 2-3 years. He does everything well. He finishes well during the rim. He might not be able to dunk, but he can definitely lay it up. He plays solid defense. He sets great screens. He's one of the best screeners in the game. So I'm going to say Zubac is my start. I'm going to bench Ayton just because of what I've seen from Ayton in the past. That Suns finals run, he was very vital to that run. People might forget that he was averaging like 18 and 10 during that run. Without him, they wouldn't have went to the finals. I know Devin Booker and Chris Paul and Mikal Bridges all had their moments, but DeAndre Ayton was really a force down there. I don't know if he's lost his love for the game or what it is, or if he just doesn't have the motivation, but he is kind of fallen off a little bit in terms of where he was at that year. But if he can ever get back to that, he's a top 6-7 center in the league easily. And then finally, I'm gonna cut Clint Capella. He does everything you want your center to do. I just think the dudes in front of him do it a little bit better. He's obviously a great lob catcher, but what center really isn't a great lob catcher at this point in the NBA?
Yeah.
So start Zubac, bench DeAndre Ayton, cut Clint Capella.
Yeah, and for mine, I have a little bit of a different one. I'm going to start DeAndre Ayton, which is a little different. Obviously, Ayton on the season averages about, if you look at it, he averages about only 10 points. Oh, it's rebounds. I was like, what? 10 rebounds, 14 points, and a block. But at one time, people forget that DeAndre Ayton was classified really a few seasons ago as a top 3 center in the league. There was a little run there when the Suns went to the finals that Ayton was a top 3 center, and I couldn't name more than 3 guys better than him.
Yeah.
But now, it just obviously he's kind of gone down, but I still saw what he could be, and I still think he's a decent center. I'm going to say bench Clint Capella. I like Clint Capella, but he only averages 11 and 10. Really good rebounding center. He's always been able to do that, even in his days in Houston. I'm going to say bench Zubac. Obviously, like you said, he's underrated. He averages about 12 and 9, but he just doesn't move the numbers for me. So I would say he is my cut out of the 3. So moving along now to start, bench, cut, and here's a little bit of a funny one. Okay. Start, bench, cut JaVale McGee, Swaggy P, and Lance Stevenson.
Oh, this is easy.
Okay, Jalen, you can go ahead.
We're starting with Lance Stevenson. Lance Stevenson is never mind. Lance Stevenson is one of the best confident players in the league.
When he has confidence,
he plays like a top 5 shooting guard in the league. At least prime Lance Stevenson did. I don't know about now. He's in the G League now. But prime Lance Stevenson, whenever he had the confidence that every shot that he took was going in, it was like watching prime Michael Jordan. I mean, it really was. Every mid-range shot was going in.
You never watched prime Michael Jordan.
Exactly.
Yeah, but he watched prime Lance Stevenson.
I watched prime, and that was like watching prime Michael Jordan. It was the exact same thing. Whatever those 90s dudes felt whenever they watched Michael Jordan, that's how I felt when I watched 2014 Lance Stevenson. He was generational. Absolutely generational.
Okay.
I don't even remember the other 2 names that you said. All I heard was Lance
Swaggy
Stevenson.
Swaggy P and JaVale McGee.
God.
I'm benching JaVale McGee. JaVale McGee has had a lot of. He's had a longer career than Swaggy P. Swaggy P had like a couple years where he was like solid, and other than that, it was kind of just bad. JaVale McGee was like a starting center on a lot of good playoff teams. So I'm gonna bench JaVale McGee, cut Swaggy P.
I think starting Lance Stevenson is probably the only right option here. Lance Stevenson was incredible in that OG Pacers uniform era. Along with number 24 Paul George. I mean, he was lethal in that era. I'm gonna bench Nick Young, just because Nick Young, his upside those few years that he played was better than any JaVale McGee season. I know JaVale McGee has the longevity and he's still in the league today, which is couldn't even imagine a league where Nick Young still plays today in 2024. But those few years that Nick Young had where he was good on the Warriors, I mean, I don't think JaVale McGee even has a single season better than those 3, in my opinion. So I'm going to start Stevenson, bench Swaggy P, and cut JaVale McGee.
All right, that's valid. And for mine, I'm going to say start Lance Stevenson, like you said, Jalen. I mean, when he was confident and whenever he was rolling, you'd see him do the ball, spin it between his legs, do a little spin, and somehow drive to the cup and make a layup. You'll see him just do some face emotes, dribble the ball funny, and then make a crazy pass to a guy for a layup.
He would blow in LeBron's ear. I mean, what player has the confidence to do that?
He was just unfazed by anyone. Isn't on an NBA team, comes back to the Pacers, first game back, has 20 points in the first quarter.
Yep.
Just unheard things by Lance Stevenson. He is just a meme of himself. I would say bench JaVale McGee. Obviously, he had some really good runs over there with Golden State, and people forgot when he was younger, he was a very solid center for the NBA, for I believe the Wizards and the Nuggets as well.
I remember him on Nuggets.
Obviously, he had lots of goofs and memes on both those teams, but he had a lot of highlights as well.
Like
he is the
like
face
the
of Shaq.
Posterizer when he tried to posterize someone from the free throw line.
Yeah,
God.
he is the face of Shaq in the Fool.
I mean, he is, and the
JaVale
other guys.
McGee.
This is basically the Shaq and the Full start bench cut because all 3 of
Yeah.
these guys have been on there countless times.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to say bench Swaggy P because even though he's famous for obviously shooting that shot and turning it around and it missed, and obviously the stuff that happened with D'Lo too made him a meme, and just he's done
And
a lot
the
of
confused face meme.
yeah. There's a lot of memes of Swaggy P, but we're talking about basketball play here. I would say he's the worst out of the bunch. But I would say cut Swaggy P.
Legendary meme right here.
Legendary meme.
Yes.
Legendary meme.
But finally, the final one of the day, start bench cut, will be 3 players here that kind of necessarily we're going to go back to legends. We're going to go with 3 guys who played shooting guard at some point in their career. Start bench cut, Reggie Miller, Dwayne Wade, and Paul Pierce. Aiden, you start.
Ooh. I think there's one clear bench here or cut here. I think the one clear cut, you guys might hate this, but I think it's Reggie Miller just because he never won a chip. Which is something that these other 2 guys have. Dwayne Wade, he has a chip, but he was a second option on that team. Paul Pierce was basically the first option on that stacked Celtics team that won a chip with Rajon Rondo, Kevin Garnett, Kendrick Perkins. So with that being said, I'm going to start Paul Pierce, bench Dwayne Wade, because Dwayne Wade was
Wait,
also
start Paul Pierce.
yeah.
That's crazy.
I'm starting Paul Pierce. Y'all forget about Paul Pierce.
I'm not forgetting about Paul Pierce.
I'm starting Paul Pierce. I'm benching Dwayne Wade just because Dwayne Wade was a menace on defense as well. And then I'm cutting Reggie Miller.
Man.
Okay,
Go ahead, Jalen.
that's a list. That's definitely a list of all time. I'm gonna start Dwayne Wade. He's the third best shooting guard of all time. Easily. I mean, people try to argue Harden in there or even Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson never won a chip. James Harden's never won a chip or two. Wait, no. Wade has 3. Yeah, Wade has 3 chips. So I'm gonna give it to Wade. Obviously, he wasn't the first option on those LeBron Miami Heat years, but he was the first option on the at least the Shaq year, which was a great playoff run for him. Second, I'm going Reggie Miller. I think Reggie Miller was not born. He was he happened to be playing in the worst era for any player in NBA history because he had to go up against Michael Jordan in the Bulls. He had to go up against Patrick Ewing in the Knicks. And the one time he makes it to the finals, he has to go up against Kobe and Shaq. But all those years, they were competitive against. Like, he almost beat the Bulls a lot of times. He beat the Knicks a lot of times. He beat the Pistons a lot of times. I mean, Reggie Miller, it was basically just him and not many other all-time greats. I mean, Mark Jackson was there. Jermaine O'Neal might be an all-time great in some people's eyes. But it was mostly just Reggie Miller being the all-time great on that team. Obviously, he doesn't have a chip because he ran into Shaq and Kobe, but you can't really blame him for that. Not many people are beating prime Shaq and Kobe in 01. So
I'm switching my answer. I'm starting Dwayne Wade. And
I
benching Paul Pierce.
was wondering about that. And then lastly,
Came to the
I'm cutting
realization.
Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce had a lot of great years for the Celtics. Obviously, he won a chip with the first super team of all time.
Finals MVP.
He did win Finals MVP, but he didn't win anything after that or before that. And I'm not trying to use it against him, but I just think Reggie Miller had a better career.
That's valid. And, well, whenever I said this, I kind of wanted to go in a different direction.
I swear, if you start Reggie Miller,
Okay, let's calm down. I wanted to go in a different direction because I was really just really studying the stats here. And Paul Pierce and Dwayne Wade's careers kind of correlate pretty evenly, I would say. And both players have had over 25 points per game in 5 seasons. Dwayne Wade and Paul Pierce. Reggie Miller's most points per game is 24 in a season in his second year. So obviously that kind of tells you where we're at. But the thing that's iffy for me, Dwayne Wade was never a one option on a championship team. I would say whenever they won it in 2005, I would say the number one option on the team was Shaq.
Okay.
I think they don't win that championship without Shaq.
Okay.
And
Wade had that 108 year where he averaged like 30 points a game, but I don't think he was in the finals that
in
year.
2008, yes, he averaged 30 points per game, but his team was very bad.
Yeah.
His team was very bad, awful. So that's the year they had that one pick and drafted what's his name, Michael Beasley. But looking at it, I mean, this one's a really close one. I'm gonna say start Dwayne Wade. Obviously, he has more rings than Paul Pierce, and I would say Dwayne Wade is a better defender than Paul Pierce. But I would say at their peak, Paul Pierce was better than Dwayne Wade. I think peak Paul Pierce beats Dwayne Wade in every game. As in a 1-1. But I would say as a longevity, as a career, Dwayne Wade averaged around 18 points longer than Paul Pierce did. I would say start Dwayne Wade, bench Paul Pierce, and I don't even think it's close. Reggie Miller, who is my GOAT as a Pacer fan. Reggie Miller shouldn't even be compared to these guys. I mean, we look statistically, he had one season where he averaged 24. Other than that, he really just hovered around 20 points per game for the rest of his career until the back end of it, where he averaged about 15. I would say Reggie Miller cut Reggie Miller. But that's going to be it for today's episode. It's been a fun one. No NFL today, but maybe it'll come back next week as it is a little bit of, what's the?
Dead Zone.
It is
Yeah,
kind
there's
of the dead
nothing
zone,
going
but,
on.
but what's going on there? I mean, there's a
Hey,
few
T.
Combine.
Higgins. T. Higgins got
Combine.
franchise tag.
T. Higgins got
franchise
franchise
tags,
tag.
combine. We'll talk about that all next week as the
Hey,
combines. this
Caleb
week.
Williams is currently like 45
45
minutes
minutes away
minimum.
from us.
kinda
Yeah,
crazy
we
to
should
think.
go.
We could
We should go
go-
find this hotel room. Whoa,
Whoa.
whoa, that's not what I meant to say.
Hey yo,
That's not what
watch
I meant.
out!
Hey, that's my future quarterback.
Oh,
I
yeah.
bet
maybe,
it is. Maybe.
We'll see.
We'll see. But that's going to be it for today's show. Thanks for joining us. Episode 16 in the Bucks. Episode 17 coming out next week.
Hopefully, maybe.
Maybe.
We'll see.
We'll
It is
see.
spring break. I'll be in Miami with all the baddies, rizzing up.
Yeah, I will also be in Miami. So, look for us on the streets of Miami. So, yeah, that's going to be it for this episode. It's been fun, obviously. Daily videos almost every day on TikTok. Make sure to follow us there, Roll the Tape Sports. Sam with Instagram. And just follow, like, whatever you got to do on what you're watching that's on either Spotify or YouTube. But as always, thanks for joining us, and until next time.
Yes, sir.
See you.